sisters and brothers, a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Saint Luke.
Glory to you, O Lord.
The scribes and the Pharisees said to Jesus, "The disciples of John the Baptist fast often and offers prayer, and the disciples of the Pharisees do the same. But yours eat and drink." Jesus answered them, "You can make the wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them, but the days will come, and when the bridegroom is taken away from them, then they will fast in those days." And he also told them a parable. "No one tears a piece from a new cloak to patch an old one. Otherwise, it will tear the new, and the piece from it will not match the old cloak. Otherwise, no one pours new wine into an old wineskin. Otherwise, the new wine will burst the skins and will be filled or spilled, and the skins will be ruined. Rather, new wine must be poured into the fresh wineskin, and no one who has been drinking old wine desires new, for he says the old is good." My sisters and brothers, the good news of our salvation.
Praise to you, O Lord Jesus Christ.
Good morning, my sisters and brothers. We have so many stress at the moment because of this pandemic. We recognize that because of this lingering pandemics, my sisters and brothers, it brings us so many stress and deep anxiety and fear in our own hearts. That's why according to the recent survey, there is an increase of number of people who are totally depressed because of this pandemic. And also the number of people, in a way, committing suicides, maybe because it was also triggered by the pandemic. That's why, let's face it, my sisters and brothers, that we are emotionally stressed. And we recognize also that in order for us to survive this COVID crisis or pandemic, to become physically well is not enough. We may not be infected by the virus, but if we are emotionally and spiritually stressed, somehow in the end, we are still infected by this COVID virus. We are affected by it. So it is necessary for us right now to ask ourselves, sisters and brothers, to determine what is the main cause of your own stress right now. Thinking of our own situation and listening to many people in the midst of this pandemic, I listed 6 reasons why people are so stressed today. Number 1, we are not in control of everything. We recognize that in the end, one of the main things that we people likes to do is to control everything. To control people, to control situations, to control our daily activities. But in the midst of this pandemic, we recognize that we cannot control everything right now. We cannot even know when will this pandemic will end. It's a lingering things, and we realize that there are so many things in our life that we are not in control, and it brings stress. The second source of stress is we are not well trained and also disposed or prepared to face such pandemic. This is something that we are not expecting since at the very beginning. And so we are not trained. We are not trained in terms of economically. We are not trained in terms of our own way of physical preparation. We don't have real access in terms of the hospital, how to do it. Even the doctors do not know how to do it, to cure it. And we realize that in the end also, we are not also trained in terms of how to manage our emotions and thought, or even our own disposition in the face of this pandemic. We are not trained. That's why we do not know how to handle it. The third source of our stress is there's no clear future. We do not know what will happen to us next week, 1 month from now, or even in the 2021. One thing for sure, my sister and brother, it seems that this pandemic will linger with us for months more until the vaccine will be discovered. So there's no clear future. Eh tayo pa naman, napakahalaga sa atin yung hawak mo pa rin yung tinatawag nating future or hinaharap. But no, we do not know. The future for us is bleak, especially for those who are very negative. Number 4, we still have this attitude of comparing and also complaining. Those two words are very dangerous in the midst of this pandemic. We used to compare our life into the old life that we used to know. We used to compare our life also to other people. And so we have, in a way, have lots of complaints. Complaints dito, complaints door. And then before you know it, we realize that after comparing and complaining, we end up having more anxiety and fear in our own hearts. The next is, number 5 of source of stress, is the reality that we are still in this denial stage. Para bang hanggang ngayon, nakakalimang buwan na tayo dito sa pandemic na ito, we are still insisting, said, Lord, sana magising na ako. Sana matapos na to. Sana ayoko ito. Eh, sisters and brothers, we cannot move on until we move from our denial stage to embracing stage. We cannot. And sometimes this is also the reason why we don't see the graces that God is giving us to survive in this pandemic, because we are still in the denial stage. We still deny this unfortunate event that's happening in our own life. Number 6, the other source is we are not yet ready to embrace the new normal. No? It is there, sisters and brothers. Although we know that the new normal is indeed abnormal. And yet this is the new normal that we are supposed to embrace. Everything is totally different. Like the online education of our children, or even the way we are dealing or talking to one another, our own meeting, the way we recreate. We don't have any restaurants anymore that we used to go. We don't have that public transportation that we used to have, and many other things. But this is actually part of the new normal. I'm always insisting and telling people, my sisters and brothers, that for us to be able to move to the new normal, we're supposed to embrace the new normal. That's the only way. Because graces of the now will never be achieved or be harvested by someone if this person is not in the now. It's impossible. That's why we are supposed to, in a way, learn how to embrace also the new normal. The more you resist it, the more you realize that it is just bringing stress in our own hearts. And so, those are actually reasons. I'm sure you do have other reasons why we have stress in these pandemic times of our life. Now, the trick here, in order to survive, my sisters and brothers, is to embrace the new normal. Because when we embrace the new normal, and some people have recognized it, once they decided to embrace the new normal, it lessens their stress. They realize that they are now becoming much more creative in terms of what they are supposed to do every day, because many people are, in a way, super bored into their own houses because they don't have nothing to do. That's why it is important for us that it brings creativity. Once we embrace, it brings creativity. Once we embrace this new normal, it brings also a new sense of energy. because the energy is actually there. But if you're rejecting the new normal, the new energy of the new normal will never come out. And usually, my sisters and brothers, the graces of God given to us is not in the past, it's not in the future. The graces of God will always be in the here and now. And so, what is basically the call? The call is we need to unlearn the old and learn a new trick in our own lives, especially in the midst of this COVID virus. Now, I'm telling everything this to you, sisters and brothers, because the gospel for today is basically about the battle between new things, new way of worship, and also old things and old ways of worship. Why? Because there's a battle between the Pharisees and the scribes and also Jesus. Unfortunately, we realize that the Pharisees and the scribes were basically bringing in the old way of worshiping God. And here comes Jesus coming in with this new way or new era of worshiping the Lord through love, faith, and justice. But unfortunately, the religious leaders failed to see it. That's why they're complaining to Jesus. Because they're saying, how come that we, the Pharisees and scribes, and also the followers of St. John the Baptist are also well involved in fasting and also in prayers the way we are supposed to do as Jewish people. But your people, your disciples are always drinking and eating. So they cannot understand. It is actually a new way of worshiping. But you know, in the end, it is actually something that we need to consider. That Jesus said in this gospel reading for today, will you allow my disciples or people to fast when they realize that the bridegroom is actually with them? Oo nga naman, di ba? Para bang nakakatawa kung merong handaan, pumunta ka sa isang handaan at sasabihin mo sa mga sa nagtaong naghanda, hindi ako kakain ngayon kasi fasting ako. Diba? That's actually an insult. And here in this gospel reading, the Lord or Jesus Himself or God Himself is actually, or the groom Himself is actually with the disciples. So, why fast? But they are supposed to rejoice. But it does not necessarily mean that Jesus is telling them that you're not supposed to fast anymore. Because Jesus said, when the time will come, when the bridegroom will no longer with the disciples, then it is now time for them to fast and prayer, which will happen when Jesus will be crucified on the cross. So in other words, at a certain time, certain discernment and decision-making is necessary, sisters and brothers, to ask ourselves, what's the right disposition that I need to take, that I need to wear, that I need to have in order to face whatever is in front of me every day? Right now, in the midst of this COVID crisis, we cannot insist, we want the old way of living. The Pharisees and the scribes cannot insist, this is the only way to worship. They cannot. We are supposed to discern. And I recognize, sisters and brothers, that in the midst of this pandemic crisis, our own ability to discern and also to adapt and also to adjust and to be much more open to the new things is the necessary condition or disposition in order to survive well, not just to survive, but to survive well and fruitfully in the midst of this COVID virus. In other words, the disposition of openness to the new things, the disposition of adaptability to the new things, the disposition of becoming thrilled and excited to learn new things in this life. Kaya nga po sa inyo, matanda na ako, Father. Bakit para bang, ang hinahanap ko, TV. TV ka lang ng TV. you realize that there are many other things. Ang hinahanap mo, face-to-face meeting. Ang hinahanap mo, yung traditional school. Those things are actually not with us right now. So if you will insist something that is not in our own control, stress lang yan, sisters. Release it. And learn new things. Unlearn, di ba? And learn. Tuto po tayo sa mga bata, tanong nyo, paano ba paggamit ng Zoom? Paano ba paggamit ng Google Meeting? Paano ba gumamit, magsalita sa harapan ng video? Paano ba itong online teaching and so on and so forth? Paano ba itong new online mass and so on and so forth? Adjust. Be creative. Learn to live and learn to appreciate what we have right now. Learn to count our blessings and not just our own misses. So, we are in a way being asked today, my sister and brothers, to ask ourselves, no? Yesterday, just a few days ago, I told you with regard to that there are 4 stages right now in the midst of this pandemic crisis. The fear stage, the learning stage, and also the growth stage. Where are you at right now? Are you still in your own fear and anxiety stage? Where are you at right now? If you feel that you are not yet moving and you have so much stress in your life, why? What keeps you from embracing what is new? Dahil ba hindi ka nasanay? Never say, sisters and brothers, that an old dogs will never learn new tricks. And beside, you are not a dog. You are a person capable of learning many things in this life. That's why we are supposed to leave our own comfort zones and enter into risk zones, because there's no miracle, there's no changes, there's no life to those people who are still living in their own comfort zones. Unfortunately, sisters and brothers, some of us, their comfort zones is staying in their own fear. Yung comfort zone ba yan? Staying in your own fears, or staying in what you used to know, and then I don't want to learn new things right now. This is my own comfort zone. Is that comfort zone or discomfort zones? There's no growth if we are staying in our own comfort zones. We are supposed to be much more courageous, risking. We are supposed to be much more brave, recognizing that there are new graces in the new normal that I need to seek, because if God guides, He will always provide us the certain necessary grace we need every day. Ganun naman po ang Diyos eh. Ang Diyos po natin, mga kapatid, kapag tayo po tinawag niya sa isang bagay na hindi mo alam at hindi mo alam kung paanong gagawin dahil ito ay bago, hindi naman po tayo iiwanan ng Diyos ng basta-basta at sasabihin ng Diyos, bahala ka na dyan ha. Ang ating Diyos po, mga kapatid, ay lagi rin po magbibigay ng tamang grasya at sapat na grasya upang nang sa ganon, kung anuman ang papasukin mong bago sa buhay na ito, makakayanan mo kasi meron kang grasyang ibinigay ng Diyos. But if we are living in our own fear and anxiety, those graces will remain on that table because we are so focused with something without recognizing that the grace is necessary is actually here. Come to think of it, sisters and brothers, no? Never stay in what you have learned before and say that this is the only way. Ibang-iba na po ang mundo ngayon. At kapag natapos na po itong new normal na to, sisters and brothers, we're not returning to the old normal that we used to know. The movement, as I have told you, is from the old normal, old life that we used to know, moving to the new normal right now, and then after the pandemic, that's the new normal. It's not a return to the old normal. So if you do not know how to adjust right now and be more open in terms of the new development happening in our life, and because you have lots of fear to enter into these new things, marami tayong takot sa mga bagong bagay, takot na humawak ng cellphone, takot na mag-tinker sa computer, takot na magtanong sa mga kabataan ngayon, paano ba to? Paano ba mag-zoom? Paano ba pumasok sa ganito-ganito? Hindi po talaga tayo natututo. At kadalasan, sisters and brothers, it is actually very dangerous to just say, I will just wait. Ayoko magkamali. Maghihintay na lang ako na magkaroon na lang ng vaccine and then I will move on. We do not know when will it come. Sisters and brothers, there is always a danger in just purely waiting. That's very, very dangerous. We're supposed to be active right now. We are supposed to be, we are supposed to discern right now and take that courage and risk in order for us to experience growth in our own life. So, few baby steps in order to learn new things is actually good. So don't be afraid. In our own faith right now, I also have recognized, sisters and brothers, that even in our own faith, God is also allowing us to learn how to relate with Him in a different way. Ibang-iba eh. Ngayon, we're supposed to relate to God even if we feel that God is basically absent. Before, everything is actually given to us. All the things that we did is given to us, and so it is easier for us to say, Lord, I love you, I praise you, I glorify you, I will serve you. Nandiyan lahat. Pero ngayon, wala lahat. Can you still say to the Lord, Lord, I still believe in you, I still trust you, I still love you, because I know that you're always with us? Sometimes not. Sometimes we do not know how to do it. And so, never ever follow the directions of the Pharisees and the scribes who are still insisting to the old. No, we cannot. We're supposed to go for the new one, because the new wine, according to gospel reading, you are not supposed to place it or put it into the old wineskin or container, because it will just burst. New wine needs new container. In other words, new graces given by God to us right now must be placed into that new container called new normal. Go for it, and you will experience changes, new life, new energy, new hope in your own life, because we have decided to embrace the will of God in the new normal.